Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created
equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter had a partnership that was extraordinary for a president and first lady. The Carters' bond was deep, both in private and in politics.
Could Jimmy Carter have been elected president without Rosalynn Carter?
Well, I don't like to think he could.
She spoke her mind to her husband, and he valued her advice. She sat in on cabinet meetings, a first, and took the heat for it.
It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what he does. We're going to be criticized. You just have to have confidence.
Born in Plains, Georgia on August 18, 1927, the oldest of 4 children, she started dating Jimmy Carter when she was 18.
The first time I had a date with him, I came home and Mother said, "You know, I like Jimmy. He has the nicest smile."
They married a year later. Jimmy was in the Navy, which allowed them to see the world. But his father died in 1953, so with their 3 sons, they returned to Plains to run the family peanut business. In 1970, Jimmy was elected governor of Georgia. Rosalynn campaigned by his side and on her own. That continued on the 1976 presidential campaign trail, where their 4th child, Amy, often joined them. As First Lady, she continued to be a sounding board for her husband.
I look forward to consulting closely with him on a regular basis.
She also traveled as his emissary, especially to Latin America. After leaving Washington in 1981, they then created the Carter Center in Atlanta, where they promoted peace and where she continued her work as an advocate for research and treatment of mental illness. She also became a prominent voice for caregivers and for women and children, and she joined her husband in the work of Habitat for Humanity. And as the world faced the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, the couple used their voices to encourage Americans to get vaccinated to help save lives. Their long tradition of helping others led President Clinton to award the Carters the Medal of Freedom in 1999.
Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter have done more good things for more people in more places than any other couple on the face of the earth.
President Carter not only called Rosalynn his wife, but also his best friend and chief advisor. A small-town girl who didn't plan on a public life, Rosalynn Carter understood the power of high office and used it to help make this a better and kinder world.
Well done. That was a nice life. That was a really, really good one. Yeah. And now she's dead. Okay. Yeah, no, she's 96. Come on. I mean, it's just was a beautiful life. I mean, and his too. I mean, the Carters, the idea that we couldn't get 2 terms for a Jimmy Carter in this here country is pretty mind-blowing. It's pretty unbelievable. Only why? Because he put solar panels on the roof of the White House back in the day. You know, it's just, they were so ahead of their time. They wore sweaters. They told 77-year love story. 77 years. That's longer. They've been married longer than most people are alive, than most people live. 77 years of marriage. It's amazing. And, she was diagnosed with dementia, I think, last May. So that was quick. That's good because, we know a lot about dementia versus Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's could last 10 years. It's slow. It's horrible. And so he stopped his cancer treatment. He was going through melanoma, skin cancer. And it had gone to his brain. It had gone to his liver. They got him, I don't know if they got him into remission, but they got him, to actually, I guess it was remission. And then he stopped his cancer treatment, I guess because he knew that she was going and he didn't want to live without her. I mean, people like that don't come along every single day. They just don't. You don't hear stories like that every single day. You don't see people who literally walk the walk. Yes, they were totally, completely uber Christians. In fact, I think their thing was, I know people who know them really, really well because they are giving gods and goddesses, the people that I know that knows them. They were amazing people who brokered peace in this world. Literally, the only holding peace. This is what it's so interesting. Like now, today, in this moment, is to remember that Jimmy Carter was able to make, he was able to make a lasting peace between Israel and Egypt. And it lasted, it worked. It actually is still in place at this very moment. Now, the right wing in Egypt assassinated the Egyptian president, Anwar Sadat, who was the partner in this peacemaking effort that was undertaken and has lasted all these years. And it's incredible. I mean, here we are just, the young people, they don't like, this is what it takes. But, in America, if you're Jimmy Carter, you can't get 2 terms. It's like, it blows my mind, it really does, because obviously they were exceptional human beings. So the story is that they would read the Bible to each other each and every night, and they would read when they were apart. They would read the same passages wherever they were, so that they were both reading the same thing and thinking the same thoughts at the same time, even if they were apart. I mean, come on, that's beautiful. And when she did this massive tour of Latin America, she was like, the State Department told her, oh, it's not going to work because, these are macho countries and they're not going to want to hear from a woman. And seriously, it's like right out of Barbie. You know what I mean? It's like, real misogyny. It's telling her, don't even bother. Nobody's going to listen to you. And you know what her answer was to that? She said, they're going to want to talk to the president and I'm the next best thing. If they want to talk to him, they should talk to me. And then they will be talking to him because I will tell him what they sent me back to tell him. And, that's how she got accepted, by leaders in Latin America. And she talked to them about everything. She talked to them about drug interdiction. She talked to them about nuclear proliferation. She talked to them about, economic prowess and talked to them about, the poverty and everything that was going on there to try and, get them to get a handle on democracy, to try and get them to understand that was the path forward. That was the way forward. That was the way to freedom. Anyway. Just an amazing life, really worth celebrating, worth knowing about, worth taking a minute because, people will just say, oh, well, she was 96 and now she's dead, and of course that's true. There's no lie in that. But to forget to remember how much this couple did as ex-president and first lady, they didn't have to do any of it. They didn't have to build, homes for the homeless. They didn't have to start Habitat for Humanity, which, when I had to choose charity, when I was actually making enough money to actually think about, giving, making charitable donations, and I could actually do it. Not anymore. Now I'm thrilled that turkeys are, so much less expensive. I bought my Tom this weekend. Do you know it was 18 pounds for $20? And that was a brand name. I'm just saying, it was a brand name. Factory farmed, yes, but brand name. But when I was in a place where I had to think about, the only charity I really loved, the only one that I really, resonated with, was the Susan G. Komen breast cancer, because my whole family female cancers, including me, but that was before I was, somebody who had it too. But it was Habitat for Humanity. That was my charity. That's and I gave big because I really believed in it. I really did. Now I can't. But I used to. So anyway, I just I think that if you don't know anything about the Carters, like you don't know anything about Hamas, like so many people don't, you should take a brief moment and learn about the Carters.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This year, something to be thankful for, a feast that won't break the bank.
Yay!
The American Farm Bureau estimates the typical Thanksgiving meal will cost $61.17 this year, a 4.5% decline from last year's record high price tag. That drop thanks to easing inflation. And the big bird at the center of it all is cheaper too, down 5.6% this year.
This year we're in a kind of a recovery year. We were battling one of the largest outbreaks of high-path avian influenza, and luckily that's subsided to some extent.
Side dish staples like cranberries and cubed stuffing down too. It's a good thing the big meal is affordable because you might find more folks at your dinner table.
A lot more crowded. Everyone's definitely coming back from COVID and making up for lost time.
According to the travel app Hopper, Thanksgiving airfare is down 14% this year, averaging just $268 a ticket.
This year, airlines have added much more capacity. They're flying more flights, more seats, and at the same time, travelers are back to regular travel patterns.
And once you get there, the rental car might not cost as much. The price for your holiday weekend wheels down 17%, averaging just $42 a day.
Right now, a lot of prices are incredibly low because rental car agencies aren't buying new fleets.
For those hitting the roads, some welcome news at the pump. AAA reports the national average is down to $3.34 a gallon.
We're probably anywhere from 30 to 60 cents less per gallon than where we were last year.
And with overall inflation cooling, shoppers are seeing a slowdown in price increases and even some price drops ahead of Black Friday. The nation's largest retailer, Walmart, says it's cutting prices on apparel, home items, and toys. Small signs of relief heading into this holiday season.
Yeah, it sucks, right? He's a bad president. So one term for him. One term for him. It's like Jimmy Carter. Like if things get really good, you have and then all of a sudden Iran rears its ugly little head and does something in the Middle East, and Jimmy Carter's a one-term president and Joe Biden's a one-term president. There's a pattern over here. There's a freaking pattern over here. It's unbelievable. But, here everybody's going, oh, it's the economy. It's the economy. Oh, it's really bad. Trump was so strong. He was so good. That was Obama's economy, by the way, that Donald Trump was enjoying, that you were enjoying when Donald Trump was the president of the United States. That was not anything he did, okay? Nothing he did. In fact, all he did was borrow another $2 trillion, put it on the tab, and give it to the donor class, give it to the top 1%. That was it. That's it. That's all the man got done. So what is it that, you love about, what he did? It was totally Obama's economy, okay? And then COVID hit, and we got an avian flu thing with the turkeys, and everybody was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And here we are actually recovering from all of it in a big way in almost every sector. Inflation is not a thing anymore. There was zero inflation last quarter. Zero. Rental cars are cheaper. My Pepperidge Farm stuffing cubes were cheaper. The cranberries, I buy real cranberries. It's very easy. I think people are always very shocked to learn how freaking easy it is to make cranberry sauce. Okay? You put the cranberries in a pot of water with a whole bunch of sugar, boil, done. They pop. Add orange juice. Yum. Eat up, everybody. Eat up. So, it's like an amazing thing. Everything is cheaper. Rental cars are down. Gas prices are down. Gas prices here, okay, we're in Florida. I get it. We're in the South, the deep, deep South. But gas prices here, it's like $3. $3 a gallon. Okay? And people are just, like, I don't want him. I don't want him he's too old. And the guy that you're going to choose over him is a guy who is going out to find 5,000 shock troops using Oracle's AI tool to comb through people's social media to see if they're loyal to him or not, and will serve him in the manner in which he wants them to serve, which means in an anti-constitutional, completely fascist way. It's unbelievable. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing freaking thing. And they're within 2 points of each other, which is within the margin of error. But these two guys, one who is working tirelessly daily at getting us straight, getting us right, forgiving student loans, getting us out from under the yoke of debt, actually, allowing the Fed to do its job and all this stuff and saying that we're at an inflection point. It's time that, America, the essential country, actually, asserts itself in a way that keeps death down to some sort of a minimum in crazy far-flung places like the Middle East and Darfur, where, by the way, can I say, it's so interesting to me that people who now want Palestine to be free from the ocean to from the river to the sea, people who are saying this kind of, they have no earthly idea how many people, how many Muslims are being slaughtered in an ethnic cleansing in Sudan. Not even a clue. Couldn't probably even find it on a map. Amazing the selective care that people in this country now have for Muslims in far-flung places that are, practicing terrorism against each other. So honestly, I don't understand why this is a close race. But, the idea that people have to know every single day what a second term would look like. It won't be a second term. It would be a forever term. We would not. Do you know what the court did today? This is crazy. Okay, you have the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals actually had a case in front of it about the Section 2 again of the Voting Rights Act. And this surgical attack on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act included whether or not the court would recognize that individuals or groups of people who had been, discriminated against, and that their voting rights had been, discriminated against, would have a private right to sue. Well, all these many years that we've had the Voting Rights Act, since 1965, there has always been a recognized private right to sue. In fact, I went to Mark Elias's Twitter feed because Mark Elias is the election protection dude. He has made his entire lawyerly career about protecting our right to vote, about protecting our Constitution, about protecting our access to the ballots, and the subversion that happens afterwards, a thing of the past, okay? So I went to his Twitter feed, and he said to reporters, he said, if you're covering the Eighth Circuit VRA decision, Voting Rights Act decision, you need to explain this only affects, check this out, only affects Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. What does it mean? In those states that I just mentioned, there is no private right to sue for your voting rights if your voting rights have been infringed. Now, what's crazy about it is over the last 40 years, there have been 182 successful challenges by groups or people saying that their voting rights have been discriminated against or taken away or somehow subverted or perverted. And 182 successful cases have been brought by individuals. Only 15 of those cases were brought by the Department of Justice. 182 successful cases by people, 15 by DOJ. You just lost your private right to sue.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Just in time for holiday travel, gas prices are down $1.70 from their peak. Airline tickets are down 13% over the last year, and car rentals are down about 10%. And as we start preparing our Thanksgiving meals, grocery inflation is at its lowest level in over 2 years, with prices for eggs, milks, bacon, and fresh veggies lower than last year. In fact, according to the American Farm Bureau, the cost of a Thanksgiving dinner fell this year. Prices are down for turkey, stuffing, peas, cranberries, pie crust, and whipping cream. We had a big discussion about whipping cream in the back. It's like, don't know what whipping cream is. I know whipped cream, but not whipping cream. Anyway.
Are you kidding me?
Because
you make
wages
no
are
sauces.
rising, this Thanksgiving dinner is the fourth cheapest ever as a percentage of average earnings. Finally, as we look ahead to holiday shopping, since last year, prices for toys are down about 4%.
Toys.
Used cars and trucks are down 7%. And TVs are down 9%.
Okay, I'll have a pint of whipping cream and a toy. You choose. And some frozen pie crust is what I need. 4.5% less for frozen pie crust, and who doesn't love a frozen pie crust? Okay, so why is it so close? Why is it so close between the two of them? Can't be the age thing. They're literally 3 years apart. Okay, they're literally 3 years apart. It can't be the ability to manage a decent economy, because this economy is great. We have almost 5% growth. GDP 4.9%. Okay, inflation is zero. It's zero. People were screaming about gas prices when Donald Trump was president. You're such front-running phonies. Obviously, the answer is he's racist, and they like it. And there's no other explanation that I can rack my brain to honestly say I have come up with that separates the presidency of Donald Trump with COVID and put lightsabers up your bun and take horse parasite, anti-parasite deworming pills, whatever. And it's just, there's no comparison except that Donald Trump hates the same people that MAGA hates. And that's it. And that's it. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, there aren't enough people in this country to vote for him. And so we're going to go through some things, right? Because not only is he going to contest the results yet again, but he's going to scream. It's almost time for him to start screaming that it's rigged. It's almost time. Today, we actually saw the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals make it harder for you to sue if your voting rights are trampled upon in various states, right? In Arkansas. Oh, Sarah, honey boo boo, must be thrilled about this. Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. You have no private right to sue. That was taken away from you by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals today. Now, the good news in that is not coming from the 8th Circuit. The good news is coming from the 5th Circuit. The 5th Circuit, which covers Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, ruled the opposite last week. So now, of course, it's going to go to SCOTUS, which sounds exactly like what it is. So now the Supreme Court's going to get this case, and hopefully, they will decide it prior to this next election. But I don't think so. I'm not sure. Maybe this summer, we'll see. But so it's an amazing thing that you can already see the incremental attacks on our right to participate in our own democracy, in our own lives, in our own ways, in our own person, places, and things. Our rights are being taken away one by one. And if you think that this is the slow, decrepit slouch toward Gomorrah, wait until, the election. Wait until then, because no matter what the result is, there's going to be violence, because that is the country that, he built. That is the platform upon which he stands, the platform of cruelty, the platform of violence, and then denying the violence or saying you're actually the victim of the violence. Now, you saw what Mike Johnson did over the weekend, right? Over the weekend, Mike Johnson decided, who's Mike Johnson? Yeah, I get it. Okay. So the new unknown Louisiana House member who goes by Mike Johnson has become the Speaker of the House. What? Yeah, I know. As we know. So he actually had promised, who I have no idea, and, I'm pretty alert to politics, never even heard him promise that. But now all of a sudden it's a promise he made to MAGA or some crap, that he told them that he would release all of the January 6th footage. I thought Tucker Carlson did that. I thought Fox News did that. That all happened already, and there was no there. Okay, there's video of before the violence, and there's video after the violence, where the Capitol looks quiet. But that was before the violence and after the violence. Okay, this is during the violence.
Hope, possibly this morning.
Oh, no, that's a violence of a different magnitude. Here.
The Israeli military releasing new...
No. Here. There. He's trying to tell people that this was peaceful. Okay, that's not newly released, although it is labeled that way. This is video from January 6th that some of us actually saw because we paid attention to the January 6th Select Committee and their evidence and their videotapes. This is what Liz Cheney had tweeted out. Yeah.
Multiple capital injuries. Multiple capital injuries.
Okay, you get the idea, and we all know, we've all seen it, and now all of a sudden Mike Johnson has some page that you can click on. Now, Safari, they said that browser's not going to work for you. I don't even understand it, but if you go through, like if you can get to the files, you'll see the files are videos before the violence and after the violence. And people are now tweeting videos of before the violence and after the violence, sans the violence, saying, see, it was peaceful. As if we're going to forget what we already saw, what was already shown to us 1,000,007 times. I don't know. And people are falling for it. They're going, you see, January 6th was not violent. So that's Mike Johnson. That's what the new speaker, and they're going, oh, he's even better than McCarthy because look at him. He's willing to propagandize everybody. I don't know what they think. But that happened over the weekend. Okay. And I was like, wait a minute. What? And his thing was, oh, so Liz Cheney only wanted to show you the violence. But there was more to it than the violence. Okay. But the more to it than violence doesn't subtract from the violence. You know why I know that? Because the people who died are still dead. And no matter how many videos he releases, that will be true.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, you know what else happened over the weekend? The Colorado court that was hearing the case of whether or not Donald Trump is an insurrectionist, and if by virtue of being one, is he ineligible to be on the ballot for president. And the Colorado court, literally, you talk about splitting the baby, and we all know that that's what courts do, okay? Everybody gets that that's what they do. They usually just right down the middle, okay? They give something to this one, something to that one, and it's right down the middle. Oh, this one was just bizarre. This was really bizarre because this judge said, oh, yes, he's an insurrectionist. He engaged in insurrection, and he engaged by incitement. That was the way that he caused insurrection, by incitement. He told people to come on that day, said it would be wild, planned an event that would get them all fired up and juiced up. They went to the Capitol, they committed violence, and they did it all in service to him to stop the certification of an election that he lost. And the judge agreed with that characterization of what Donald Trump did that day and said, yes, he is an insurrectionist, but, and I told you that this was going to be the question, he's not an officer of the United States. He's not an officer of the United States, and therefore Section 3 of the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to him. What? That is a get-out-of-jail-free card for an insurrectionist if I ever heard one. That's like saying that the Confederate president, Jefferson Davis, okay, wasn't an officer of the Confederacy, and he obviously engaged in an insurrection with secession and going to war in support of, being its own country, but he could run for president. That's what this court actually found in Colorado. This is bizarre. This is really crazy. The other courts found, and there were three cases, right? There was a case in Colorado, there was a case in Michigan, and there was a case in Minnesota. And these judges are so afraid to call it like balls and strikes, to call it the way it happened, to call it like they see it. And if need be, do an instant replay, okay? And let the umpires have a little look-see and make sure that the call from the field was the right one. They're so afraid to make the call that each and every one of them have parsed it out to such an extreme that there is no way to get an answer unless it goes to the Supreme Court, which is why I'm saying we are in for some things. We're all going to go through some things. So Colorado said, yeah, he's an insurrectionist, but that's not a barrier. Being an insurrectionist, taking an oath as the president of the United States of America, to uphold the Constitution, to faithfully execute the laws, and then violate that oath in a very violent, obvious way. So obvious that a court that doesn't even want to make rules that it's so obvious, I have to say, you engaged in insurrection. Not only that, but you gave comfort and, aid to them at the end when you told them, go home, we love you. We love you. And sitting there and doing nothing to stop it for like 3 hours. Yeah, okay, we can't parse that out. But what we can parse is that it doesn't apply to the president of the United States. So she did. The other court said, well, this isn't the presidential election that you're asking us to rule on. This is a primary. And so Donald Trump, the insurrectionist, isn't running for president in the primary election. He's running for the nomination of his party. So we won't decide yet whether he can be on the presidential ballot. We'll just say he could be on the primary ballot for the Republican nomination in Minnesota. That's what we'll say. And the same thing with Michigan. We'll withhold our judgment until the time comes. Until the time comes. I mean, this is so obvious to every single body that looks at these videotapes, every single person that knows what he tweeted out, every single person that knows that he wanted to make Sidney Powell a special prosecutor to seize the machines using the military. Everyone who knows the story of Coffee County and everyone that knows the story of January 6th, everyone that knows what Donald Trump wanted to have happen on January 6th, that did happen on January 6th, knows this man is not capable of being somebody who can take the oath again. How do you violate your oath to be the president of the United States of America and then get a second chance to do it again when you failed so miserably I don't understand it, except to say the courts are terrified of his MAGA audience. They're scared. They're scared of the violence that is visited upon judges who don't rule for Donald Trump. And so today there was another thing about whether or not the gag order on Donald Trump, who does nothing but threaten the staff of the court, whether a gag order should be stayed or whether the gag order should be put back in place. And I didn't even understand the argument. I mean, the argument was like, so he threatens people. So I swear it was oral argument. You could listen to it. But I mean, I was like, what in the hell kind of questions are these? The judge is like, okay, so he said this and he said that. Okay, so he threatened this one and that one. Why isn't that permitted speech? Because it's a threat. I don't know what's going on in this country, but we're looking less and less and less like a decent place. We're looking less and less like a place that can make a hard decision about who is dangerous and who isn't, about who gives a damn about the Constitution and who doesn't, about who had power and wielded it in a perverted manner, in a manner that sought to abuse everyone of their right to vote. Anybody that disagreed with him had to be shut down, put out, lied to the courts, lied to state legislatures, etc. But he can try it again. Let him have another crack at it. Let him have another, bite at the apple. I mean, I can't even believe it. So this is the Colorado Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, okay? And she's been asked to respond to this decision that was made in Colorado, saying, yes, he's an insurrectionist, but that's okay. That's okay. He could still run for president.
This is a surprising ruling. I think you are really hitting it on the head. The idea that any official who would engage in insurrection would be barred from taking office except the presidency is incredibly surprising. That basically means that the presidency is a get-out-of-jail-free card for insurrection. As someone who cares deeply about the state of our democracy, I find that very troubling. The American people need to know that the president, the person, if anybody, the person most in charge of protecting the Constitution, actually has a duty to do so. So I'm right there with you. I find it very troubling that the president of the United States could engage in insurrection and, unlike everybody else, could then be president again.
You know, this is exactly what the unitary executive, what some people are calling Project 2025, you know, all this stuff. This is what it's about. It's about creating a dictatorship. It's about creating an authoritarian figure in this country who is exempt from indictment, exempt from prosecution. You know, it started with the Office of Legal Counsel, right? That stupid opinion that the president of the United States is indeed above the law and you can't indict a sitting president, meaning if the president murdered his wife on camera, on TV, while he was president, we would all just have to sit and watch it, right? And there would be nothing to be done about that. If the president decides to put me in a camp because he disagrees with me and doesn't think that I have a right to free speech, I can't sue him. I can't do anything to him. I can't indict him. I can't nothing because he's the president. Now they're saying even ex post facto, even after you're president, even when you're not president anymore, you can still run for president even if during your presidency you were an insurrectionist and you actually encouraged and incited violence against your own country, and you asked people to not be afraid to go attack the Capitol, and you told them you would go with them to do it, but, you know, you got scared or whatever, and you didn't do it. But, I mean, you can't do anything to it. And they're saying he's not an officer. How could he not be an officer? Don't we always, in just normal parlance, this isn't like an elevated thing. Don't we always say to each other, the president of the United States is the chief law enforcement officer? Don't we say that? Isn't that like a normal expression that recognizes that he is an officer of the United States of America? He's also commander-in-chief. He's a civilian commander-in-chief, which makes him not a uniformed officer, but he's an officer, a civilian commander. I think that's an officer. And now all of a sudden he's not? He's not. So Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, if he would have run for president, which is why we have the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to stop that from happening, in today's world, he could have, at least in Colorado. What the F? I mean, everyone listening to this now, no matter where your loyalties lie, you know that's wrong. You know that's not a good ruling.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
What accounts for this bizarre, actually bizarro, upside-down holding that the highest office in the land, the one with the greatest power, the one whose danger to the republic is at its maximum, would somehow be exempt? The judge herself says, she admits, this sounds preposterous. That's her word. She says it would carry the preposterous implication that Jefferson Davis, who took an oath to the Constitution before becoming a senator, then became a senator, then turned on the Constitution, then became a Confederate and the president of the Confederacy, that he could then become president of the post-Civil War United States. She says, I know that's preposterous, but maybe the writers just goofed. Right. She says, maybe it was inadvertent. They were not inadvertent. She says, for whatever reason, that's the way she reads it. My suspicion is that having built a wall of fact and law so high that no appellate court could climb over it, a wall that establishes that Trump was guilty of engaging in a disqualifying insurrection, She threw him a lifeline that was so thin, so threadbare, so likely to fall apart, that although he could claim victory, no appellate court could uphold putting him on the ballot on that basis. So she basically had it both ways.
Duh! Now, I didn't even know that Lawrence Tribe was going to invoke Jefferson Davis before I played that. I had no idea. It was part of the stuff that I had this morning, but I didn't get a chance to listen to it because I had to go to the dentist again. But isn't that something? Isn't that special? Isn't that, great minds think alike and all that good stuff? It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous ruling, calls it a holding, okay? It's a ridiculous ruling. It makes no sense, but none of this does. None of it does. That today judges were told that Donald Trump is witness tampering on his social media, that he is intimidating witnesses, that he's intimidating the staff of the courts, that he's threatening people with violence, and the judge wants to know, and why isn't that protected free speech? Are you kidding me? Have we really lost our grip on the dividing line between fair play, fair speech, free speech, and violent threats? We can't tell the difference anymore. We can't tell the difference between an officer of the United States, the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, the person who takes an oath to be the officer that upholds and protects the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, isn't actually an officer, even though he did engage in insurrection. And then you have another court said, well, he did engage in insurrection, and he may still well be considered an officer of the United States, but we don't even want to go there. So here's where we'll dump it. Here's where we drop it. Here's where we give up on making a ruling or having a holding. We say, well, this particular ballot isn't a presidential ballot. This particular ballot is a primary ballot. And so he's running for the nomination of his party, not the presidency. We don't have to make a conclusion at this point. We reserve the right to rule later on. What kind of people are these? We pay them almost like $200,000 a year, and they won't protect the United States from a man who is indicted in 4 jurisdictions for 91 felonies, who has been found to be a sexual abuser by a jury, no less. And, faces trial for espionage in Florida with a friendly judge, by the way, who is, she's mucking up the calendar, lovely little, the judge that loves Donald Trump, that was appointed by Donald Trump, that feels beholden to Donald Trump for her very existence. Okay. So she's holding the date that she, intends to hold for the trial, but everybody agrees that her date is May 20th, 2024. Hardly anybody, to a person who pays attention to this stuff, thinks that there will be an actual trial in May. Okay, nobody really thinks that's going to happen because she hasn't done any of the pretrial stuff. She's not getting it moving. And so she's just holding that date and refusing to say we won't be ready on May 20th because that would free up the calendar for other trials. And she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't want to, see him come to the bar of justice and make his case. She's not interested in that. She's actually playing on his team as a judge. Now, get ready for more of that if this guy becomes president. Because, when you listen to the rantings of a Steve Bannon, and he says things like Kash Patel should be the head of the CIA, and Laura Loomer ought to be, the press secretary. And he picks the most wackadoodle people you could possibly pick, the most, sycophantic, genuflecting psychos that you could think of, the most psychotic people that this country has ever produced. And he throws their name into the, hey, this is who will be, our next Secretary of Defense thing. Michael Flynn will go back to being our national security advisor. The man that actually said we should declare martial law and have the military take the machines. That guy is still in play to be the national security advisor. That's true. So when you listen to Steve Bannon say these things,
Kash Patel, this great patriot, People think Cash is just a genius about counterterrorism and national security and everything like that, and he
What?
is, and he'll be the head of the CIA in the second term. But Cash understands the administrative state. This is more than a bureaucracy, right? This is an organic thing that's grown. It has its own courts. It puts its own legislation out in the Federal Register. It has its own enforcement capability. It's an absolute government that must be taken apart brick by brick. And Cash showed us how. Axios has been reporting it. Remember, we have 4,000 political appointees in any administration. Roughly 1,000 have to be Senate confirmed, so they're going to take a while. 3,000 can hit the beach day one.
The beach. It's a war.
In 16, obviously, it was a come-from-behind victory. We didn't have this. We didn't have the troops. We hadn't really gotten organized like that.
Troops.
But now we have no excuse. This is why you have all these great think tanks coming up. We're going to have a well-trained cadre of people that will hit the beach day one. And their number one thing is to start taking apart the federal bureaucracy brick by brick.
He calls them shock troops. This is exactly, the kind of stuff that, you could set it aside as the rantings of a madman. You could set it aside as, somebody who really is an insurrectionist and wants to declare war upon his own nation, upon his own country. And, goes on his little podcast every single day and says that's what he's about. You could ignore that, but if you did, you would be ignoring it at your own peril, because that is exactly what Donald Trump intends to do. There is no question about it. He is looking to you. I mean, everybody, that knows what he's doing is, the print journalists are writing these stories. They're true stories. They're fact-check stories. Donald Trump is using Oracle's version of artificial intelligence to scour everybody that he's considering being one of his shock troops to pull into his government after he purges thousands and thousands and thousands of civil servants, thousands of people who say no to overturning the Constitution out of our government and inserting these loyalists, these sycophants. And he's looking at their social media profiles and their social media postings to make sure they've never said a bad word about Trump as they are interviewing these people for these jobs. It's on.
It on TV.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Okay, so when you talk about Trump staffing the government, okay, some of the names that are coming up are people you've never heard of, but you need to meet them. This is one that MSNBC Mehdi Hassan's show introduced me to. I was not aware of this dude, okay? His name is Mike Davis. And one of the things I want everybody to understand is when Steve Bannon is throwing out names like Kash Patel being the head of the CIA, and he's saying two things like, okay, so there are 4,000 key positions in the government that we have to purge, and 1,000 of those take Senate confirmation, so that will take a while. I want you to understand they figured out their way around that too, because that was, an earlier clip that I had of Bannon at CPAC. Okay, so now what they've agreed to understand to do is that they will make everybody acting. Just like we had an acting Secretary of Defense on January 6th. Remember all that? And we had an acting Attorney General. And Donald Trump wanted to make Jeffrey Clark the acting Attorney General. Jeffrey Clark, the guy who came up with the fake electors plot, the scheme, the illegal plan. He should be in charge of law enforcement in this country. So now there's another guy. His name's Mike Davis. Mike Davis is one of these right-wing conservative lawyers. He was responsible for shepherding Gorsuch's, nomination through the Senate, and also Kavanaugh, and creating doubt about Kavanaugh's victims and questioning them and making Kavanaugh into the actual victim here. This is Mike Davis, okay? And he's being considered. His name is being thrown around by the likes of Steve Bannon and others, Jr., also, as possibly the very first acting Attorney General in a Trump administration. And even Mike Davis realizes that what he will be asked to do will be so illegal that he will only last a few weeks in the office of Attorney General, and then he will require a pardon, and that's fine. That's fine. Swear to God.
Don't just listen to Trump right now. Listen also to the people Trump might hire to execute his second-term agenda. People like this guy.
We're going to fire a lot of people in the executive branch and the deep state. We're going to indict Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and James Biden and every other scumball, sleazeball Biden. We're going to deport a lot of people, 10 million people and growing, anchor babies, their parents, their grandparents. We're going to put kids in cages. It's going to be glorious. We're going to detain a lot of people in the D.C. Gulag and Gitmo. I'm going to recommend a lot of pardons. Every January 6th defendant is going to get a pardon. During my 3-week reign of terror as Trump acting attorney general, before I get chased out of town with my Trump pardon, I will rain hell on Washington, D.C.
I mean, you know, some people go, really? You think he's serious? Yes, I think he's serious. You know, you can dismiss all of them as cranks and crackpots or whatever you want to say, okay? Whatever you want to characterize them as, that's fine. The more cranky and the more crackpotty and the more insane and the more sycophantic and the more willing to break the law they are, the more they are in contention for seriously huge jobs. That's a fact. And you know, it's like this is why this man's name is coming out of, you know, Junior's mouth and Bannon's mouth and, you know, Mike Davis, my 3-week reign of terror. They know that what they're planning or hoping to be able to do with their power is illegal. They know it. They don't care. And they're not interested in Senate confirmation. You know, the AG has to be Senate. They will go in as acting attorney general. And when they leave, they will have broken the law 8,950 different ways. They will have sent people to gulags. They will have deported people. They will have, made a president that didn't deserve to be president, inoculated against any crime he wants to commit. You might even have the president of the United States under an attorney general like that committing murder, you know, going out and shooting, shoplifters, just shooting them on TV and being able to do nothing about it. And you'll all sit there and go, I never saw that coming, and I will have to call you a liar. But then I will go to the gulag, too, because I am telling you the truth, and that can't happen in Trump world. But this is why his name is being thrown about.
There's a couple people that you could put in positions like that. You know, we talk about Mike Davis as Attorney General. Like Mike Davis, and Kash Patel be like interim AGs.
See?
And he got a shout out in a recent TV appearance by Steve Bannon.
You think somebody that's struggling? You think somebody that's struggling right now in the economy cares about firing random deep state people, indicting Joe Biden's
there's many things
brother,
Tim,
deporting
did
people?
I say that's all they're going to do? That's Mike Davis will probably be the Attorney General.
Yeah, maybe it's not such a good idea to import people from third world Marxist hellholes who hate America. We're going to become a third world Marxist hellhole very quickly. It is only illegal to object to elections in third world Marxist hellholes, and now in New York, D.C., and Atlanta. This is clearly a political prosecution by Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Soros-funded Manhattan DA. Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. He's a George Soros-funded puppet prosecutor. You certainly can't trust these George Soros-funded prosecutors.
Still too subtle for you? And move to Twitter, where Davis has written, quote, "The violent black underclass is a danger to America. We must resume the mass incarceration of these thugs. In the meantime, Americans must arm up. These monsters will kill." Davis has, in fact, told followers to arm up at least 16 times on Twitter, to arm up against the violent black underclass, against Soros-backed DAs, against county attorneys, against Democrats in general. All while tweeting the individual names of journalists, college professors, and politicians he would send to the gulag.
I'm not kidding.
That legitimately strikes fear into my heart.
You know, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get people to actually smell the coffee. I'm trying to get people to wake up to, what's ahead, what it is that they are plotting and planning and scheming to do. should they actually get their little mitts on power of the magnitude of president ever again. This will not go well for ordinary people. This will not go well for people of color. This will not go well for Jews. This will not go well for anybody who is here as a DACA recipient or anybody who is an anchor child, who was born here, but their parents were not, citizens. This will not go well for an inordinate amount of Americans. This will be bad. This will be scary. This will be, a place that, we used to just read about. And so when you combine what's being said there at the, out of Mike Davis's mouth, there's so many of them. There's Mike Davis, Mike Johnson, all of these people. When you start to put it all together and you realize today that the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals actually said you have no right to challenge an election if you're an individual or part of a group, meaning if you're part of the NAACP. Yes, colored people. Or if you're part of the ACLU. Or if you're an individual who has had their vote taken away for some crazy reason, like you were a felon once, but you got your rights restored. Well, they didn't recognize that, and so you can't vote. Well, you can't sue anymore, according to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeal. And no right to privacy.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Want to see something? Okay, I want to show you this. This is the new president of Argentina, okay? This is who the people of Argentina elected in a time when they have 140% inflation and 40% unemployment, okay? This is who they went for. I'm going to mute it so there's no music on it. See this guy? He's dancing. Okay, this is him. Javier, everybody. This is Javier Milei. He is now the president of Argentina. He calls himself I can't even say it. He's an anarchist, okay? But he's a financial anarchist. He wants to burn the place down to the ground, change the currency, and start using the dollar. I don't know. And they went for him, by a bare majority, but only because he's nuts. And they just gave up. They gave up on, their lives in Argentina are just terrible. You remember Argentina left, it was a democracy, and then it went away from democracy. And then in 1983, it said, all right, we're going to go be a democracy again. I can't tell you how many people in my old neighborhood when I was growing up were expats from Argentina, most of them Jews, who had to flee Argentina because they were hunting Jews in Argentina. So, I look at this stuff and I'm just like, okay, that's what happens in, Argentina. That's what happens in South America. That's what happens in, banana republics. That's what happens when there's, hyperinflation. They go for the craziest, weirdest guy with the worst hair. I don't know what it is with guys with bad hair being very appealing for high office now. I don't get it. But anyway, he's a far-right uber libertarian that's going to burn it all down to the ground.
A massive political shakeup in Argentina. Javier Milei, far-right economist and television personality, joined the political fray just 3 years ago.
Oh, they went crazy.
He's in charge of the third largest economy in Latin America,
Great.
as it teeters on the edge of disaster.
Porque hoy comienza la reconstrucción de Argentina.
Today we begin the reconstruction of
Milei rose to
Argentina.
power on a wave of popular discontent over a stagnating economy with a 40% poverty rate and inflation nearing 150%. This woman says she supports Milei because she's looking for change in Argentina, a country she says has been suffering from years of decadence. He became known for his unorthodox showmanship during the campaign.
Okay, that's
wielding
not
a chainsaw
showmanship.
symbolizes war on government spending, threatening vital public services. And printing a picture of a U.S. dollar bill with his face on it, part of a widely criticized campaign to use the U.S. dollar as Argentina's currency. The self-described anarcho-capitalist has also advocated for eliminating the country's central bank. Milei's controversial tirades against the political class have drawn comparisons to neighbor Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro, as well as former President Donald Trump, who sent congratulations to Milei on Truth Social, saying he will make Argentina great again.
Fascist again. Yeah, he will. It's unbelievable how the guys with really funky hair, I mean, crazy, like the crazier the doozy, the more elevated people get in their respective countries now. You know, remember when Kim Jong-un was just like such a bizarre looking dude? Remember when he was like the odd man out with the weird hairdozy? Then, you know, we had Donald Trump. Then we had, you know, what's his face in London? He's gone, right? And now we got this guy over here. I mean, I don't, what is the appeal for fascists with like guys with really slashy bangs or weird hair or tiny little facial hairs, you know, mustache? I don't know what it is, but it appeals to their sense of what? Insanity? This guy literally walks around with a chainsaw. A chainsaw. Look, this is him. Gonna do it to the house. Yeah, he's gonna chainsaw the house. That's what he said. I just honestly, what is it with people where they literally after you know a corrupt administration they go for fascism? Like what is it? Whenever there's hyperinflation, people want to go to fascism. They can't be bothered with, you know, questions of governance. They can't be bothered with parliamentary procedures. They can't be bothered with passing laws or getting bills signed into law or bipartisanship or anything. They just want I alone can fix it guy. And the guy with the craziest hair and the guy who's the most willing to damage ordinary citizens in pursuit of his, you know, hold on power, you know, let them die. Let them, you know, be sacrificed. I mean, I saw this yesterday, and I was like, oh, my freaking God. So I hope you're ready for an influx of Argentinians. They're very nice people. I grew up with a lot. In fact, my first boyfriend ever, I think I was 12. He was an Argentinian guy, an Argentinian Jew, and his family, you know, were straight from Argentina. In fact, that's how I was first, you know, exposed to Spanish, which is why I understand what he's saying. Deborah in New Jersey.
Hi, Randy. I'm concerned that we're not able to talk to each other as people without identifying ourselves as in a certain team, however you want to define that in life. And you know, it's not our fault necessarily, okay? If we don't start, if it's not possible for us to find a way to talk to each other as people, then all of us are going to go through things we never imagined. And I'm sorry to be upset, but I am.
You should be. It's really dangerous right now. This is a serious situation. And you know, the problem that we find when we try and talk to people who may disagree with us, I had a great conversation with a guy last Friday who called it. I think his name was Lou. He was from California. He disagreed with me on almost everything, thought I had a point about, you know, the Middle East, and called to say so. We got along great. We spoke to each other as intelligent human beings that disagreed on certain things. No problem. But when you have to talk to people who won't admit that the world is not flat, when you have to talk to people who think that fascism is the preferred, you know, way to govern, that he alone can, when you have to talk to people who don't believe that the moon landing actually happened, I don't know how you do that.
And I feel the same way, and it's just that, and I've, you know, withdrawn and within myself, okay? And I'm fortunate that I'm a retired person. I'm very fortunate. I'm more fortunate than most. But it really upsets me because even if I go to the grocery store, I know I can't express anything.
Right. Right. I agree with you. I feel it too. I feel it in doctors' offices, especially because most of them are, you know, very staunchly, you know, conservative. And
I can't even express my opinion to my neighbors, Randy.
I know. My neighbors have, flags flying too. I understand. I get it. I'm in Florida. You're in New Jersey. You're very lucky.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Do you think the Earth is round or flat?
I know we didn't go to the moon.
We didn't go to the moon?
No, we didn't go to the moon.
Why do you say that?
Because you can't get out of the atmosphere.
Really? What do you mean?
Why don't we go look at underwater or past the ice? That's where it's at. They want you to look up. They don't want you to look on our own ground.
Think the Earth is flat?
I don't know.
I don't know. Man.
I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to piss off the stoners, but he is one, isn't he, Brett?
I mean, the things coming out of his mouth are not things that generally somebody who isn't stoned would say. How about that?
Okay. So that's a problem.
We didn't go to the moon because we should be looking under the ice. This guy makes a lot of sense, right?
I mean, can you not do two things at once? Listen, this is the problem, and I understand why people are getting very emotional. This is crunch time. It is scary. We are less than a year away from selecting a president of the United States. We have two old men, okay? One is 81 today. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday, Joe Biden. Live long and prosper, my friend. And we have one that's going to be 78 years old when you vote for him. I don't know what the big diff is with the age thing. I think that's a bogus thing. They're both old, okay? They're both old. 20 years older than me is old. You understand? Okay, so that can't be the thing. The thing has got to be that people either can't figure their way out of their own way. They can't get out of their own way. They don't want to get out of there. I don't know what it is, but it's like lead, follow, or get out of the way. They can't get out of the way, and they're stuck in this thing, in this melee of Trump, because that was the last good time they had, and there's still some camaraderie going on between the Trumpers. That they don't find when they get into politics with any other politician. That's fine. That's fun. Maybe he'll get another TV show and you can watch him. Maybe they'll run it 24/7 on, a defunct channel. Maybe they'll bring back, HBO, which is now Max. Maybe HBO can come back and be the Trump channel and just play, The Apprentice over and over and over and over. All day, 24/7. Like I Love Lucy. When I was growing up, Channel 5 in New York, WNEW, that's all they played. All day. All day. I Love Lucy. And it was reruns then. And everybody watched it. And we didn't complain. It was fine. It was good. So maybe that's what it takes. Maybe that's what people need. Maybe they just need reruns of Donald Trump. Over and over, and that will placate them. That will, be like the soothing ointment, the salve that you put on the wound. I don't know, but that man cannot be president. And I know it's frightening to even think about it, and it should be because he is not up to good. Okay, his motivation is not goodness. His motivation is cruelty. His motivation is control. His motivation is chaos. His motivation is himself. We all know he's going to jail. The things that he has done with regard to showing war plans for Iran in the documents case, my God, the insurrection on January 6th, that's the next trial. That's March 4th. Okay, everybody understands that this man was looking to hurt our country. The problem is some people who really believe we didn't go to the moon and that they can't figure out if the earth is round or flat, even though they see sunrise and sunset every day. They want the country destroyed. They do. They don't believe in America. They don't think it works. They have absolutely no love for this country unless he becomes president again, and then they will love this country. But with them, it's like a tap. You know what I mean? They turn it on and off, on and off. You know, when the president that they like takes us to war, they fly their flag. When a president they don't like is trying to keep us out of war, they hate this country. You know, Joe Biden is not committing any boots to anybody's ground in any arena. And yet he supports the democracy that is Ukraine being free from under the assault of a Russian aggressor. He supports Israel only because it's the only democracy in that neck of the woods. And if you didn't have Israel, I'll quote him from what, 30 years ago. Joe Biden understood that if you didn't have the state of Israel, you'd have to invent one. That's it. Is he disappointed in this right-wing lunatic that's running the country right now? Yes, he is. Does he want the hostages out of there before anything? Yes, he does. But does Netanyahu agree that that's the order of priorities? No, he does not, because he's a right-wing lunatic. He is another Trump. And he doesn't care about the hostages. And it was very apparent from the very beginning when they first started talking about the hostages that they said, yeah, well, you know, we'll try and get them out. We'll try and get them out. We'll try. And then they started bombing the whole place to smithereens, knowing where the hostages were. And now we really know that the hostages were in that hospital. The hostages were in Al-Shifa, and anybody who lied to you and told you that they never knew that Hamas was in that hospital, there were no tunnels under that hospital, whatever it was, they're lying. They lied to you. And I don't know why, except that maybe they're a little fascist, maybe they're a little communist, maybe they're a little red, maybe a little bit. But, you know, the left, the hard left has gone so far to the left that they're on the right now. But we know that the IDF video shows the hostages were taken to Al-Shifa Hospital, and you can't say that they were being treated there. You can't say, oh, well, they brought them because they were injured. There are now camera shots of a guy who they were dragging into the hospital who was obviously an Israeli hostage.
The Israeli military releasing new video they say shows Hamas militants bringing some hostages into Gaza's largest hospital. Israel saying this surveillance video shows Hamas moving a wounded hostage into Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital on October 7th, just hours after that surprise attack in which it seized nearly 240 hostages. A second video showing another hostage being dragged into Al-Shifa, the IDF says.
We do not know where they are. They're still hostages we need to rescue.
Oh, and here, see this one right here? This is the tunnel. They finally, decided that they were going to, excavate and show you that this is the freaking, tunnel system. This is the entryway to one of the, silos, I don't know what you want to call it, that lead to the web of tunnels under this hospital.
Israel tonight also releasing this video showing a drone entering what they say is a Hamas tunnel 30 feet below ground in the hospital compound, saying that tunnel had a blast door and firing hole, claiming Hamas ran a command center underneath, which they deny. The IDF tonight also claiming another hostage, 19-year-old IDF soldier Noah Marciano, was murdered in that hospital, but Hamas claiming she was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Today, the World Health Organization sending a team inside, describing it as a death zone. Among the patients, nearly 36 premature babies, removed from incubators after electricity ran out. 9 said to have died. But today, 31 of those babies finally evacuated to a hospital in southern Gaza. Doctors desperately trying to keep them alive.
All of them need oxygen. Need fluid.
A note in Arabic taped to this baby's chest saying he was found alone, a newborn with no name and no family. The baby's expected now to be moved to Egypt.
So you get the lay of the land, huh? Okay, so the babies were moved to Egypt. They are in incubators now. They're being cared for properly in Egypt, okay? But obviously there was a tunnel system under this hospital, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew it, including me, because if you were reading my homework that I sent out to you for free, you would have seen all the old articles from 2008 and 2014 and all kinds of things where Hamas was giving tours of their tunnels under these hospitals. So how did people sit on their air and lie to you that there were no tunnels, that there were no... I don't know. Can't explain it. Freaks me out. But here's Joe Biden saying, I don't want to go to war. I'm not committing any troops to any place at all ever, okay? But I did fly to Israel almost immediately after they were attacked to show my support for the democracy, to talk to Netanyahu and say to him, you are going to have a war cabinet made up of the opposition. I am not leaving here until you include your opposition party in your war cabinet because you're back crap crazy. I heard you talking. You're not interested in these hostages. And check this out. Like 7 of them are American. You better get interested in them. We don't leave people behind. Same thing with Ukraine. I'm like, give them the freaking airplanes and get it over with. And Biden is trying. And these sick Republicans in our government are blocking it. How do you think you keep Europe free?